All right, thank you. Good afternoon, council. I'd like to call this special council meeting of October 7th, 2025 to order with adoption of the agenda, and I'd like the agenda to be amended to include a letter from RCHS related to item 3A and an in-camera portion pursuant to sections 90.1K and 90.2B of the community charter. Prior to consideration of any regular agenda items. So someone want to make that motion for me, please? Councillor Devlin, seconded by Councillor Orlando. All in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you, Councillor Jerry. I see you. Now, before we start the meeting, any individuals that are online that are attending in camera are requested to leave the meeting and will be re-invited. So, Ms. Floyd, can you just explain the process to our guests online?
Yes, Your Worship. So what we'll do is we will basically pause this meeting, this room, leave the meeting, and then I will start a new meeting and invite each of you. But you should have Zoom open because it'll kind of be like a phone call. It won't be a link. And then you'll rejoin the meeting. Sheena, I do not have your email address written down. Would you mind quickly giving it to me?
Yeah, is that Cindy or Jeanette or Janet?
Cindy.
Okay, yeah, I'll do it right now.
Thank you.
And Matt, you're okay to stay on?
No.
No, he's
I
not?
will re-invite
Oh,
because
okay.
this meeting will be gone.
Okay, so even I have to wow, that's going to confuse an old man. All right, so we'll be back in a moment. We are going to now disconnect. Is that correct, Ms.
Yes.
Floyd?
Yes. Ms. Delasal will put a sign up.
Okay. Can I just leave this open?
Yes, please.
So it's got 418. Thanks, Cindy.
All right. Thank you, council, staff, and our guests. I appreciate your time. I'm just going to get into it. We're going to resolve back into our regular meeting. We're going to start with staff reports. Planning DP 2022-017 amendment. And that's for the BC Housing Project. Before we start, I'm going to go to, in a moment, I'm going to go to staff just to give us a brief overview, but I want to make this statement. I think if we want to move this project forward, this is a time where where our proponents can work with our staff to come up with something with BC Housing that's going to have a nice building and we can move it forward. I want to make sure that if we're going to move this forward, that it's not going to hinder the process of being able to get to that financial component that Ms. Peters needs to meet. And I don't want to be the one holding that up. This council doesn't want to be the one holding that up. So having said that, Mr. Simon, can you give us a brief overview before we go into this in robust, and then I'll ask Luke to come up and go forward with his presentation.
Thank you to your worship. Would council like a brief overview, or we did prepare a brief presentation, but I'm happy to give a brief overview.
Let's do the brief presentation if you don't mind.
Thank you, your worship. You haven't heard a presentation from me for a couple months, so figured we had a big file in front of you today. That's a very important file for the community. Might be best to give a high-level overview. So again, this is an application for DP 2022-017, an amendment. This is a development permit for form and character for 166 unit development that will have 3 buildings, including a daycare. So we'll start with a little bit of background, move into the discussion, and then conclude with the staff recommendation and options for council consideration. So the subject property is Zone Comprehensive Development Zone 12, and it's designated as mixed use within our official community plan. It is a 3-phase development with a total of 166 units across 3 buildings. Initial development permit was issued for the construction of the 3 buildings in September 2022. This initial DP only included Building 1, Phase 1. As the proponents continued to work through the process, they applied for an amendment in July 2024. This amendment was more or less revolving around including all 3 buildings into 1 permit. So you can see at the top here, this was the original permits that went to council in September 2022 and July 2024. And then most recently, and what is before council today, is a subsequent amendment that was applied for in July 2025, more or less looking at some overall design changes and increasing the total number of units, which is the image on the bottom here. So moving into the discussion, the project is funded through BC Housing and is being completed in partnership with Revelstoke Community Housing Society. Again, we have 3 buildings with a total of 166 units, about a 4,000 square foot daycare facility intended to accommodate about 49 spaces. You will have underground parking, surface parking, visitor and secure bicycle storage, as well as site landscaping. Building heights vary from 14.3 meters to 15.2 meters in alignment with the zoning requirements. There are townhomes, 16 of them total, that are proposed to be located in front of the buildings, fronting onto 4th Street as well as Downey Street, all with access from the rear. The intent of the townhomes at the front is not only to provide diversity and overall housing form, but also to break up the overall massing. So the development does comply with all applicable zoning regulations, and the annotated site plan here gives you an idea: 59 units in building 1, 55 in building 2, 52 in building 3, again a little bit less in building 3 to accommodate space for the daycare. There will be a garbage and recycling enclosure centrally located, along with pedestrian connections located throughout the site. This is taken from the staff report, just gives you a general overview of the unit breakdown. So you can see there's 85 studio and 1-bedroom units, 65 2-bedroom units that are all within the apartment buildings, and then we have 5 2-bedroom townhome units and 11 3-bedroom units for a total of 166. You can also see that there are 3 accessible units, as well as several adaptable units that are incorporated into the development. All buildings are proposed to be constructed with similar materials. So this includes fiber cement panels and natural green and stone shades for the apartment buildings. Fiber cement shingles are proposed for the townhomes with some stone material located around the base. Concrete stairs and ramps, perforated aluminum screens for the balconies, as well as the entryways, the main entryways into the apartment buildings, 2 exposed timber posts. Looking at some of the site planning components, so 148 vehicle parking spaces are required for the development. There are 166 proposed. This includes 100 surface parking spaces as well as 66 underground spaces so all buildings 1, 2, and 3 will each have an underground parkade. They will not be connected. They will all be separate to service the building that they're located underneath. In total, when we start to break down those 166 spaces, 18 of them are accessible spaces, 42 are small car parking spaces with 106 standard spaces. And of those 166 spaces, 7 of them are dedicated as visitor, including 1 accessible. We have 24 at-grade outdoor bicycle parking spaces, along with about 1,000 square foot bicycle storage room. So the bicycle storage room is located on the eastern end of building 1, along with a small commercial space that is intended to be used as office space. So the site planning overall, you can see there is a fenced dog run as well as a community garden space that is located adjacent to the residential dwellings to the northeast, intended to operate as a bit of a buffer. There is open space and amenity area proposed adjacent to building 3. There is a potential sports court / snow storage area that is adjacent to building 3 as well, located just to the south of the daycare. They have perimeter landscaping throughout, again, to provide that buffer and increase the aesthetics from the traveled roadway. And adjacent properties, you can see they're located between 47 meters and 33 meters away from the nearest property line. That would be abutting a parking area that will have a small landscape buffer as well. So staff's job in this application is to review it against applicable development permit area guidelines. Development permits are non-discretionary, so staff essentially go through, look at whether the guidelines have been met, and make a recommendation to council accordingly. So staff did review against all applicable development permit area guidelines. This falls within 2 development permit areas, being our scenic corridor development permit area located along 4th Street, as well as our multifamily and mixed-use development permit area. So the proposal does comply with the vast majority of development permit area guidelines as it relates to site planning considerations, environmental considerations, off-street parking considerations. However, there are various building form and character development permit area guidelines that in staff's review have not been met with the proposal. So this includes design elements that in staff's review are missing, such as cornices and parapets or canopies, similar design features to look at adding some articulation along roof lines and increasing some visual appeal from the traveled roadway that would also discourage the long continuous facades, and also incorporating materials that reflect the heritage of Revelstoke, which is specifically called for in our scenic corridor development permit area guidelines. So this may include areas like wood and brick that are traditionally found within the surrounding region. So the staff recommendation, I will not read this out. I will leave that for council to do. And we are recommending that the permit be deferred pending changes to comply with the applicable development permit area guidelines. Now, I do want to note that for council's consideration, there are also 2 additional options that council may consider. One of them being that council can consider that the proposal complies and issue the permit, which would be alternative council option 1. With this option, importantly, given that it is a BC housing project and continuing on with what we've done in the past, we wouldn't require a landscape security deposit. We would get an indemnity letter from BC Housing to ensure that the landscaping would be complete, which staff are completely supportive of. And then option 2, I would note as well, the original DP did go to Advisory Planning Commission. There is no Advisory Planning Commission consideration of this proposed amendment. So council may, if they deem appropriate, defer this to Advisory Planning Commission for comments as well. And while not in the report, there would be a third option that we could work through with council and the proponent. Now, you would have to speak with the proponent on how it impacts any construction timelines. If council doesn't want to go with the staff recommendation and wants to give an approval, but also doesn't want to just go outright approval and still wants to direct some changes, council could approve the permit with preconditions to issuance. So the permit would be approved, but not fully issued, and ultimately direct what needs to be changed before the permit would then be issued. I will note, though, obviously, there is a tight timeline for this with respect to building permit issuance, which have currently been received by the city and are under review, as well as overall construction timing. So I would defer to the proponent on how any alternative options would impact the construction schedule of this project. So that's it for me, and I'm happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Okay, just before we answer any questions, I'm going to encourage council not to defer this. We want to refer it back to staff, and I want it deferred because then there's no discussion. It's just done, correct?
Thank you, Your Worship. I believe that the way that Director Simon has written the motion, it's deferring until something is done. You can't defer, no debate on something that's deferred indefinitely, but you would be able to debate this motion.
Okay, good, all right. So I would like, if there's any questions of Mr. Simon, council, ask away, and then we'll get Lee to come up and do his presentation. And then we can start making some decisions on the motion before us. So Council Palmer, do you have any questions?
Yeah, question through Director Simon. So I put a request for 3D renditions. Just wondering if you have that.
Through Your Worship, Councillor Palmer, yes, I can pull these up.
Thanks for reminding us on that.
Through Your Worship, if it's okay, I can just run through these, and I think if there's any specific questions, I would certainly defer to the architect, who would be the expert to answer any of those. But I can run through them quickly for you.
Yes, please.
So you can see some of the three-dimensional renderings from the traveled roadway that are incorporated here.
Is that Fourth or Downey?
Through Your Worship, I believe that would be from 4th Street. I think as we keep running through, we'll get into building 3, where you can see it incorporated with the childcare facility. These are some sections. Proponent could correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this would be looking essentially south going or southeast going on 4th Street, where this would be the central portion that divides the buildings 1 and 2 with the pedestrian connection in the middle. And then this would be looking up towards building 3 with the childcare facility located immediately adjacent there too.
And this is on Downey Street now.
This would be on Downey Street, yes, that is correct. And this again would be from Downey Street. Again, another rendering of the childcare facility, which you can see with the perimeter landscaping and the visitor bicycle parking that is identified there, as well as the outdoor play area for the daycare facility. And this would be looking, giving you a good idea of the separation between building 2 and building 3. And that is all the three-dimensional drawings. If there's any you would like me to go back to, please let me know.
Council Palmer, any comments?
Yeah, my heart sinks a bit.
Any other comments from council? Council Palmer, go ahead.
No, I'll see the presentation. I'll see where we can go.
All right, if there's any other questions, if not, I'm gonna go ask for Luke to come forward and do his presentation. Thank you. Just so the community is aware, I've got 2 councillors that have a hard cutoff time. 4 o'clock, Councillor Devon? 3:45, and Councillor Cherry at 6:30. I hope we're not here that late.
Sorry to repeat myself. The AIPC advisor identifying myself as a UK registered architect.
So, Luke, does that mean that you have more rigid compliance in the UK than Canada, or the other way around?
You gotta run it by the
Other way
king.
around.
Okay, thank you for that. You gotta run it by the king.
Thank you to the staff for reviewing the project, and really appreciate you working with us to provide feedback on the design. We have over the last few weeks made some adjustments to the design to better align with feedback we've been provided. And just wanted to start off with the initial response to the site that's influenced the selection of the materials and the design. We've taken some of the materials from the original Begbie School that was on the site, with the shingles and the highlights around with the red window frames and tilted slanted walls. And we've combined that with the adjacent single and two-story family homes to create this datum at that sort of two-story level and bring some of that eclectic roof line that's created by the homes into the design with the pitched roofs. So we've taken pitched parapets that forms the frontage of the streets with the townhouses. The townhouse placement provides significant setback on the street. So you can see in this first image, the townhouses along 4th Street, and the location of those mean that the larger, taller part of this building is set significantly further back from the street. And so in the townhouses here, you can see the shingles and stone at the base. And then the upper parts of the building that are set back, we've chosen materials, color tones that have more of a relationship with the backdrop to Revelstoke and the mountains and the forests, whereas the townhouses have more of a color tone that relates to the surrounding houses. And this is an image along 4th Street, looking at building 1 on the right and building 2 on the left. So to respond to the comments on the color differentiation, what we've tried to do here is identify each building with a single tone, so there's a clear differentiation between building 1, 2, and 3, and the tones there with the lighter beige on the right and the greens relating to the backdrop to Revelstoke. The balcony choice, we've selected a perforated aluminum screen, and this was selected working with RCH and trying to determine what would be best for that main street frontage along 4th Street, with people wanting to use their balconies for storage of bikes and furniture. And that perforated aluminum just provides a bit more privacy and screening around the balconies. And because it's a bit more solid, it also introduces a bit more variety in the overall massing of the buildings, as opposed to sort of the picket railings that are a bit more transparent and don't really affect the overall appearance of the building. And then we've changed the color of the railings. We've brightened up the railings to respond to staff's comments to bring a bit more variety across the colors of the buildings. And then here we've just put together a quick comparison section through 4th Street, and this just compares the scale of a number of different locations across Revelstoke, with the top one being showing the 2-story townhouses with the 4-story building behind, and just comparing that to sort of downtown on 2nd Street, where you can see the streets a lot narrower and the building is much more present on the street frontage. And then also looking a bit further out of town at the Kenzie Village, and you can see that the buildings have more of a massing up against the sidewalk. So we really feel that having those townhouses there and setting the building back really creates that variety in the massing of the building. And then we've also looked to use the detailing of the siding and the metal flashing to add to the variety and articulation. And then building 3 with the daycare, that we've selected a greener tone for the upper part of the building. And here we've got the daycare on the right with a townhouse, shingle townhouse next to it. And we feel that the wood shingle effect, that's where we were responding to the wood tones. That's an important part of the the larger multifamily buildings in Revelstoke. The daycare on the end of building 3 there. That's everything I want to present today. Does anybody have any questions?
So look, with the townhomes, if you can go back to them, the townhomes along Fourth, is there a buffer, a space between the townhome and the 4-story building?
There is not. The townhomes back immediately onto the 4-story building.
So what about windows and whatnot? Are they dark? Those units that are in the higher building, are they going to be dark inside without light getting into them?
That's a great question. The building's actually been designed completely around getting these townhouses to work. So we've actually moved apartments away from those locations and located resident storage and mechanical electrical spaces in those darker, deeper parts of the plan to allow the townhouses to be have lots of natural daylight and then the apartments behind also for everything. They will need windows and access to natural light. So.
Wonderful. Thank you for letting me know that. Appreciate that. Any other comments or questions from council? Councilor Coleman?
Yeah, I would really like to hear from other councillors, but one of the questions is based on your opening comments, Mayor Souls, is are we kind of pressed where we have no options? Are we pressed into a place where we have no options? And in the question that I've asked outside of here is, are we doing this at all costs? Is that we're doing this at all costs? So with all, I'll just have to say, how I feel about it. And I did say my heart sinks, and so my apologies if for of course we're just looking at the exterior, the interior, and stuff. I'm sure there's lots of good things there, and there's lots of good things on this project. But yeah, definitely my heart sunk, and it certainly brought me back to my childhood living in subsidized housing. And this is my fear. So Mayor Souls, I'm not sure how we got to that old school, but when that was torn down in 2012, one of the comments that I recall is, the best thing about that is tearing down this 1950s, 1960s, school that was built in those days all over the country, and we've come such a long way. We have our new school that is incredibly exemplary, and so I think it's regrettable that we're using that for the inspiration of more affordable housing. I applaud staff for their recommendations there, because I think they have design guidelines. Of course, they're just based on policies of council and making recommendations. And I think the recommendation is appropriate from staff. As we see from the addition to the agenda from the letter from the Community Housing Society, again, I thank you for the good work that you've been put into this. And essentially, we're being told that there is a significant risk if we delay, if further delays are introduced. And I think I need to emphasize, any delays in this project has not been at the council table. There has not been any delays on this project from the council table. So I just want to make that clear to the community. I'd like to hear from other council members, but I guess the question is, are we in this position of saying, okay, it's this or nothing, or is there ways that we can work without and still allow this to progress in an effective way? ideally, we would take this pause. I think if this was any development from a developer somewhere, we would say no. We would say no. Take it back and rehash this. Respect, that lengthy OCP process, that comprehensive OCP that the community was very, very engaged in. Is there a way that we can fix the exterior aesthetics that's in keeping with Revelstoke in our OCP? Is there a way to do that?
Well, of course there is. My feeling is that we can approve this in general terms and say, have staff work with the Housing Society to come up with something that, these panels that are on the building that we're seeing in front of us now, why can't we change color on that? If you're purchasing them in panels, why can't those colors be changed? When I think of Selkirk Gardens downtown, that's a seniors complex, but it looks to me like it fits into the community. Everyone has their own balcony, that sort of thing, but it looks like a place that you want to live in. And so your comments are not lost on me, Councillor Palmer, because the concern that you have, taking you back to your childhood, is exactly what I was concerned about, that we were going to get an institutional thing. Have I shown you the picture of what they've approved for Osoyoos? I don't know whether you can see it from there.
Yeah.
But I mean, you look at that sort of thing, and the prison in Osoyoos is more decorum than that. However, that's that. This is this. My question is, what can we do to move this forward and not hold anything up? So I'm going to go back to our staff, and I'm going to go, when we talk about design elements, cornices, parapets, canopies, give me for instance, please, Mr. Simon, what some of those things would look like or how it could be added, or is there other ways to come up? Now, I'm not a planner, but other ways to come up and say, hey, we can make this look more enticing to the community without adding expense or minimal expense. I know I'm putting you on a spot.
Your Worship, happy to answer as best as I can. And from staff's perspective, we don't have in-house architects. Like, our job is to review the guidelines, review applications against guidelines as they come in. It's up to the proponents to come in and dictate and indicate rather how they address those guidelines. With this specific application, what staff would be looking for is specifically with the apartment buildings, some additional material differentiation to break up the long facades that are there.
Right.
We can appreciate the challenge when it comes to wanting to have a building envelope that performs from an energy efficiency perspective with respect to additional articulation within the building. Our guidelines do call for additional articulation specifically to break up that overall massing. I think what you're seeing is staff could likely live with the articulation that's proposed for the townhomes that are located in front if there was material differentiation for the apartment buildings. The roof lines, again, our guidelines are pretty specific, calling for roof line articulation. There could be some incorporation of that through the balconies that are proposed. And then again, looking at different materials, wood, brick, some stone is proposed, of course, on the row homes or the townhomes that are located up front of the buildings. So you could have some timber overhangs for providing coverage over some of the balconies that are there. And again, staff try really hard not to get into the specific details of the design and rather put it back on the proponent to say, how can you come back and specifically address this applicable development permit area guideline? It does at times become challenging where there could be subjective differences in the opinion of the individuals, which is why staff try to push it back to the professionals. And I would certainly ask council to address that question to the proponent who has, again, the background in architecture that would be able to potentially come up with some ideas on how they could address some of the specific items. We've been going back and forth for the last couple of months now on this. There has to be a path forward.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. So, Luke, I'm going back to you. Oh, Mr. Palmer, you want to weigh in before?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I feel compelled to convey to our partner, RCHS, and also to BC Housing. Being in the position I'm in, I have the opportunity to work closely with council and staff. And I want to make it very clear today, because I thought so far today has been a great day in terms of clarifying this overall project in terms of financing and the DP. But I want to convey to our partners this: there is no one in this room representing the city of Revelstoke that wants to delay the approval of the final approval by BC Housing. We want to meet the deadlines as conveyed by Cheryl Peters today. No one in this room wants to delay that. We want to get this approved. On the other hand, being from Edmonton, when I look at that building, this is just my personal opinion. Yes, it's subjective. It's not Revelstoke. I think I represent the opinions of staff and the majority of council. It's just not Revelstoke. We have a high standard here. I was reminded when we thought we were going to bring a used washroom facility from Sycamoose and put it at Woodenhead Park, and I had Director Black say, Mr. Parliament, we got a higher standard when it comes to washroom facilities. And what you see at Woodenhead Park is the Revelstoke standard. You were right, Mr. Black. You were right. I was wrong. I see that as a student housing unit at the U of A campus. That's what I see. So what we're trying to say here is we want to approve it, but that's just not Revelstoke. And that's what we're struggling with. Staff are struggling. Like Director Simon said, we leave it to the professionals. We know it's subjective. It's just not Revelstoke. And so I'm just trying to be blunt and convey collectively our thoughts. We want to get this damn DP approved, but we look at that and we just struggle and go, that's just not our community. And this is a massive legacy project, one of which everyone at this table who have to vote on this is going to be living with this look and design. So I totally agree with Councillor Palmer on the hesitancy. He wants to approve it so we can get the funding in place, but then you look at the building and go, by golly, darn it, it's just not Revelstoke. I don't know how much clearer I can be. Thank you.
Councillor Devlin.
Yeah, I'll weigh in on this a little bit because Councillor Palmer is chomping at the bit for somebody else to talk, which is rare, so this must be important. Through the chair, I will just make a few comments here. I believe staff is absolutely correct in the recommendation here from the development permit guidelines. I think it's very clear that staff has made the right recommendation. What I struggle with sitting here at the council table is, to what level is that more important than the project itself? We could talk about what isn't Revelstoke, and I agree. I look at that building and I don't see Revelstoke in that building. But I think, to be blunt, what has become Revelstoke is a lack of housing and a lack of affordability across the board, and it's getting worse. As much as we are getting as many projects and as many developments as we could possibly get for a town this size, some would argue sometimes a few too many. It's not enough, and we are looking at perhaps one of the first, I say large scale, but again, realizing the scale that we need, one of the first large scale developments that we're seeing that actually has a component of somewhat affordability. So I'm not necessarily suggesting approve as is. I'm simply stressing, I think, for the rest of council, the absolute need to not increase the cost and to delay this any more than absolutely necessary to come to some sort of consensus that everyone can live with, because we are not going to see a building of this size, of this magnitude, anywhere in town that is going to have the community lining up to be like, hey, that looks great and we love it and everything is perfect. We don't see that in Revelstoke. We aren't going to see that in Revelstoke. So what we need is something that keeps the community happy and that they're happy with it, but I want to see deliverables more than I want to see a facade on the outside. So that's just kind of my comments there. I would much rather see this go forward faster and cheaper than I would to see it go forward looking like a perfect representation of what we believe Revelstoke should look like.
Thank you for your comments, Councillor Devlin. Councillor Lucien, I'll go directly to you. Do you have any comment?
Thank you, Mayor Scholes. Yeah, I think Councillor Devlin and our CAO has kind of summed up at least how I feel about this, is that we do want to push this forward. We don't want to delay it. We do need that affordable aspects to our housing continuum here in Revelstoke. But it's not the most visually appealing building, but we are working with BC Housing. So I think that has to be weighed into this decision of how we can maybe push private to align with those design elements more so than we should be pushing BC Housing. But I think there is still some improvements that could be made.
So just so we're clear, this is, now this is gone, BC Housing is the funder, but it is now gone to basically RCHS and their proponents. Lee, do you have something that you want to add?
Yeah, when you're ready.
So I just wanted to be aware, for all of us to be aware of that. But I'm going to go to you, and then, but before I go to you, I mean, is there a way to do some color changes on those long sides of the building without adding cost? I don't know. But anyway,
just a comment, just auxiliary to that question, because I think it's more than color. Through the mayor, so we talk about the proposed materials, and I think of a recent variance or development permit amendment. I can't remember exactly what it was for a heritage building in downtown. That it's within our heritage protection area, so much higher standard. In the developer came with modern materials, but that emulated the heritage characteristics. And so that's sort of auxiliary to your question. How can we use, and I think it's more than just color, because I think you've tried to do a bit of color and you see that I've seen that in other communities and reasonably effectively done. But is there other ways to create that aesthetic? And just, I guess, further to that, I'm not looking for perfect. I don't think any of us are looking for perfect Mayor Scholes. But on the other, what can be done that working with staff, working with the BC Housing Society, and still on your question, but I think about the recent workshop the Housing Society did for another affordable, it was night and day as to the aesthetic of what was happening. It was conceptual still there as well. But is there a way that you can adjust things? Again, it's the skin basically here. And working ahead in tandem, so some sort of conditional approval. That's the question. I think that's what you're getting at.
That's exactly it. So, Councillor Orlando, do you have any input before we go back to our proponents?
Yeah, I guess a comment along the same line of looking for wiggle room. So I've been, I'm the council rep to Revelstoke Community Housing Society. I've been in the meetings for months now with everybody here who has been participating in the design process. I can say for sure that a big part of that has been budget focused. We have to bring the project in on budget, and that has meant hard choices. I think there's lots of options to go up market if you have the budget for it, but that is the main constraint that we have. I'm definitely going, my plan is to support option 1 as presented by staff. This is the alternate option 1 there. The main reason is this, in that I'll reference it a little bit later on as well, but the reality is that we are in a time crunch, and the Revelstoke Community Housing Society is in that crunch as everyone else is. We all attended UBCM this year. We've definitely got the message loud and clear from the provincial government that there is a constrained fiscal environment, and it's hard to get more funding. But my question is this, and maybe this is a question for Paul or someone else, is that under option one, which is the, you know, the alternate option, this is supported by the board unanimously of the Community Housing Society as outlined in the letter. And the key thing is this, is that we have a, you know, fiscal year ending next year, and we're trying to bring this in. We're trying to start building, you know, in the spring. The other two options, the main recommendation or the third recommendation, is going to get us back into a cycle, you know, back to APC, for example, and meetings, back to council meetings. And this is really going to put the construction timeline for sure at risk, because it might take a few months to get there. And also the nature of the changes that would be recommended are also a risk to the project, because adding things like parapets or other items that were recommended don't just mean adorning the outside of the building. There's, you know, a whole back to the drawing board element from engineering design, architecture design, checking the performance ratings, you know, unbelievably complex and costly things that will drive delays. So the question is this: looking at option one, let's move ahead of it, but looking for options as well to move a little bit closer, like get that approval, but say, hey, we're willing to, if it's color and it's doable, if it's the surface material, if there's a similar product in our exterior concrete, it's not hardy plank, but the equivalent of that, that better aligns with us. We do have some timber on the outsides. Maybe there's options for more of that as recommended there. Some of brick was another one. We you know, I don't think there's an option to start building with brick, but, you know, maybe there's options for, you know, selecting from the catalog on some of the sizes, or some of a color that's a little bit closer to the corridor statements in the OCP that this one is on. So that's my question. Can we get there with approving option one, and then trying to leave it up to staff and the proponents and the society to do their best to address those issues within financial constraints that are a reality for this project?
Great. Appreciate your comments, and I'm going to go back to that in a moment. But Councillor Cherry, I know that you have a few minutes before you need to leave. And so I just want to know if you have any comments before we move on.
Thanks, Marcel. I'm going to be honest. I'm struggling with this one a lot here. Understanding everything Palmer said, having listened to council, having sat in too many of these meetings now for what feels like forever. And then seeing this design, especially the townhouse sections where it's just a monotone building with, I understand the need we have for affordable housing. I understand the need we have for the childcare. I understand the funding constraints that are happening right now.
You're cutting out. Matt, you're frozen and cutting out.
So did you say I was cutting out?
Yeah, you're back.
Give me a couple minutes.
Oh, you're back. You're back. Carry on.
How much of that did you get?
Most of it.
Sorry about that. It's more than just aesthetics. I'm struggling with this. Looks like, you know, the affordable housing projects from the 70s and 80s from where I grew up that did not age well. I'd like to say I'm happy to move forward with this, but there's got to be some changes that need to be made, or else we're going to have community pushback on this for a building that I hope stays up for the next 50 to 100 years. I don't quite know how to get there at this point so far down the line, but that's where my head's at.
Okay, so I think you're giving us a good idea that if we were to approve it, it's going to come up with some better materials. When I look at I'm going to give my input now. When I look at the townhouses at the front with what appears to be brown stained cedar siding, built a funeral home in 1982 in Salmon Arms. That was the product we used. And then we ended up having to change it or redo the outside many times, and the upkeep was horrendous. And it just always looked dated until we changed that product. So I'm concerned about those sorts of things for the housing society's sake down the road. It's like, okay, are we gonna need to, paint something or redo something, or, what is the product on the side of the apartment building? Is that stucco? And if it's some sort of stucco, I got 20 years out of the color on my house, and last year I had to change it at an incredible expense. And so, I'm just concerned about that. So Luke, can you weigh in? Can you say that, listen, you as an architect can work with our city staff to come up with something that's going to be financially viable with your group and still meet what you're hearing from us around the table?
Thank you very much for everybody's comments. Really appreciate the feedback. The product materials that we've selected very carefully as part of a wider team to meet the constraints of the project. The materials that you identified there, the issues of longevity, it's still a fibrous cement panel that is very commonly used for the scale of projects across BC, and is suitable for this type of project. In terms of larger changes to massing, additional features, those sort of items will be very difficult to. Those changes will be very difficult to make at this stage of the project. As a consultant team, we are working at an unusual pace to try and meet the time constraints of the project. We're issuing building permits every 3 weeks at the moment. Project timelines, colors. I think the colors that we'd selected. We had a limited range from a catalogue, and we felt that the tones that we'd selected, which it's very difficult to convey the exact tones. Perhaps next time I can bring the samples with me. But the colours that we'd selected, we felt like with our initial idea, that was the response to the landscape and the backdrop to Revelstoke, and that was quite a limited range of catalogue colours that we have available to us.
Yeah, through your worship, thank you. I want to say that what we've heard today, we're definitely taking in what we've heard today, because the intent of this project is not to be something that is tolerated in the community. We want this to be really welcomed and appreciated in the community. So the intent isn't around designing a building that is not going to be accepted. What our constraints are, and they've been well articulated by members of council just now, are largely time and certainty and cost. And so what I would like to ask, we are more than willing to work on color and some elements of how the materials are placed on the building that might help somebody feel like there's different articulation. Certainly, we're more than willing to work on those items. And what we propose is working with administration in some sort of workshop concept where we can just float ideas, get feedback, move on to the ones that are accepted, ones that are not, so that we can actually very quickly get to something that is more approximating what we're hearing from council today. Timeline is our issue, and I want to echo what's been said already. This is not a council problem at putting us in a harsh timeline, and nor is it administration. Administration has bent over backwards to support us on this project. It's just a process that takes time, and this is where we are today. So what we're looking for coming out of today's meeting is some level of certainty that we can continue with all of the other background drawings that have to happen over the next number of weeks that cannot be delayed, while we work with administration on some external color, perhaps some material changes if that fits within our overall budget, to address largely the the exterior appearance that we're hearing from council today. And I think we'd be more than willing to do that and to commit to that. I'm good with that.
Good, appreciate that. So Mr. Parliament's okay with that. Mr. Simon, you're okay with that? Council?
With some additional.
Some additional.
Procedure.
So can you guide us with an amended motion to come up with something that works for you and for council so that we can get this done?
Through your worship, if I'm able to share my screen, I can. Put that on
Absolutely.
there.
Yeah. Councillor Palmer and Councillor Orlando, do you want to weigh in more last time?
Actually, that's what I was gonna ask for.
Okay.
Looking for the solution.
Yeah. Okay, Councillor Orlando, comment?
Yeah, I think I would agree with Councillor Palmer. You know what, in this particular discussion, my main thing is timeline, budget, getting things moving, and an important comment that Mr. Provost made there was regarding all the other work that's going on in the background. You know, like we need certainty for those things to continue. So I guess I would have a bit more of a focus question. You know, I would like to continue with, again, option one, and hopefully have some faith that we also have an alternate one up on the screen. So maybe we'll take a look at that and see where we're going. But it's continuing that work that's happening behind the scene, like the building permit applications, everyone else, the whole engineering, pre-mobilization, et cetera, getting certainty today from the resolution we put forward.
Okay. So Councillor Cherry, I'm going to go to you because I know you have time constraints, and then I'll go to Councillor Devlin as he's next in line with time constraints. Are you okay if we come up with some sort of amending motion that will allow this to go forward, but still have staff work with the proponent for some changes?
I'm okay with that. My issue is that I'd still like to see it somewhere down the line when these changes come forward.
Okay, good. Appreciate that. Councillor Devlin.
Yeah, I'm okay with it. I might in a sort of roundabout way like to see it, but I'm not really interested in holding up, final approval of it based on seeing it and having to do another meeting. I'm happy to trust the intent of what I've just heard is that the architect is willing to work with staff. Staff knows the guidelines and has heard what council has said, and I do trust our staff to get there. So I am happy with what is on the screen here from my point of view. I think that is a great it's a great compromise. I do want to see something a little bit more made in Revelstoke oriented, but I also do want to see these units get built. I want to see them get built at an affordable rate. I cannot stress that enough. As many amendments can be affordable as possible, as quickly as possible, without compromising what we need from this project. Had you asked me before I walked in the room today how positive I was on this project, it would have been a very different story than I had after our closed camera meeting. So I'm actually would like to see this get past the finish line, and I'm not. I mean, regardless of whose fault it is, and I understand it wasn't around the council table, this project has been held up long enough, in my opinion. So I'd like to get there without sacrificing too much of what the community wants from this.
So Mr. Simon has put a motion on the screen. Is there any desire to change any of that to allow this to move forward? Councilor Orlando.
Yes, through the chair, just wondering if the development team has any comments on the proposed amendment as written. I'm assuming you can see it on the other side too. Yeah.
Yeah, through your worship. This is we're more than supportive of this amendment. This will allow us to keep going with our project and be able to address the concerns that are here today. We're with this.
All right. So Councilor Palmer, and then I will go back to your colleagues lead as they're talking to Mr. Simon, or go back to Mr. Simon and see if there's any changes from what you've said to add to it. Councilor Palmer, comment?
Yeah, I was prepared to actually put the motion on the table
Okay.
and speak to that. I'm satisfied with the wording. I do have a couple comments, but I think it's better in the debate stage.
Sure. I just want to go to Mr. Simon before we do that.
Through your worship, if it is okay, and I apologize as we're trying to
Sure.
gather the thoughts and intents of council and make this work. We would be looking at making just a minor change, cementitious.
Sorry.
Yeah. Hardy
is a trade name, correct? Yeah, thank you for that.
Just learn something.
Yeah.
Cement panel siding, but it is a trade name, is it not? Mrs. Kovacs? Yeah.
And through
So
your
we don't want to nail him to saying you gotta buy Hardy siding when you can get a knockoff for half the price. Right. All right, so I'm gonna go back to Councillor. So are you okay, Mr. Simon, with what we've got on the screen?
through your
You
worship.
can work with that?
Through worship, we can certainly work with the proponent on this, I think within their allotted timelines, and unless the proponent has anything additional to say, I don't think this would impact the building envelopes. We're not calling for any additional articulation or anything like that. And just for council's awareness, the way the resolution is structured, you would be approving the permit today. It wouldn't be issued until these changes are made. We would be following your direction here. Council would not see the changes before the permit is issued. We are happy to share them with you via email. We can send you the issued permit. It does become part of the public record, of course, but just to be clear, it would not be coming back for a subsequent formal council decision on it.
Yeah, appreciate that. Councillor Cherry, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to jump in and just make sure that this also adds something for the townhouse structures. I just want to make sure there's something in there so we don't just get the box look that we have right now.
On that sort of thing, Lee, well, I will wait for your colleagues to discuss on Mr. Simon. And then we can just see that, and then if we're comfortable with that. So Mr. Simon, further comment? You heard what Councillor Cherry had just indicated?
Through your worship, yes, I did hear, and it is certainly something that could be incorporated. I would note for the townhomes, they do have a stone base at the bottom with a little bit more building variation, the way that the windows and the doors are designed. But if council would like that to be included, again, just due to the nature of this file, I would respectfully request council confirm with the proponent that it is something that is workable within their schedule. I think just hearing what the overall intent of council is with trying to get this permit sorted right now. But it sounds like it's something that could work.
Good. So the comment, you heard what Councillor Cherry had just said, and before I ask Councillor Palmer to put this motion on the table.
Administration is being very gracious to offer us this opportunity. I think we're absolutely willing to work on both of those elements as best we can within the constraints. Thank you.
Councillor Cherry, does that meet your concerns?
Yeah, I was happy that I didn't have to put anything specific there, but yeah, that sounds promising.
All right, good. Councillor Palmer, comment before I ask you to put this motion on the
Yeah,
table.
so just put townhomes plural.
Thank you for noticing that. Okay, you want to put the motion on?
Yeah, the development permit amendment DP 2022-017 be approved for the form and character for the construction of 3 multi-unit residential / mixed use buildings at 421, add all the extra stuff, at 421 Edward Street, 418 and 422 Downey Street, subject to the following preconditions to issuance: alterations to the style of the cement panel siding and color along a portion of each apartment building and townhomes to incorporate the design changes to break up the long continuous facade, after which staff may sign and issue the permit.
Is there a seconder for that motion, please? Councillor Lucelle. Any further discussion? Councillor Cherry.
I'd like to speak to the motion.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was trying to second, so I'll just wait.
All right, good. Go ahead, Councillor.
Yeah, so briefly, I think we've been around it, appreciate the work everybody's on this to make this a successful project. We are putting faith in staff, but we have good staff, so that's excellent. And something to consider, at some point, we'll be talking about DCC credits and taxation stuff, and maybe there's a little bit of trading that could happen to help fund some, if a little bit of money, a tiny bit of money would help to create some aesthetics, just something to consideration. So I just good work on everybody to trying to find a solution to this. Thanks.
Any other comments from council? Councilor Armando.
Yeah, I just want to first of all thank everyone in the room, the big team here, staff as well as proponents for this. I do support this, just so you can see the quick conferencing happening in the back of the room, that the development team is also happy with this solution to some of the current concerns that have been expressed. I just really, want to also thank people in the room here. So we have, the development team that's working for RCHS. Some people are still here. Some people had to go, including Stuart Dow, Cheryl Peters, who joined us earlier. Jamie Boo's in the room here. Danny Emerson was on the video. Luke Peckham from Stark, Lee Provost from Provost, as well as just acknowledging staff. We had our general manager, Taha Atia, as well as staff member Kira Wolf here, and just wanted to acknowledge and thank the volunteer board members, including Sheena Wells, who has had to leave a few minutes ago, Brenda Damone, who's in the back, Michael O'Hara, and Tara Sutherland. I guess today I'm speaking in my role as council member, as well as appointee to the RCHS board, council appointee to the board. I just want to thank everyone for this, opportunity and partnership that we've been working on for so many months. I want to echo the statements made by proponents here today that, the partnership with staff has been great, and, working with the team, I see this amendment before us, and I'm fully confident that we can work this out with the changes requested here.
So Councillor, before you go on, I've got a councillor who needs to run. I'd like to vote on this. And then if it's further that you want to thank people, I'm going to entertain that.
Yeah.
But if we can.
Sure, I can get to the point if that's yeah. I get the point here. So we had a letter from the RCHS board. I don't want to address further comments here. They recommended option one, which is sort of what we're doing with a little bit of amendment, and touching on comments earlier. They make 3 points in their letter encouraging us to take this direction. Number one is construction timing. We're trying to build in the spring. And if we go back and go through this again, we're not going to get there. The second thing is, RCHS board is in a hard place, because we're in a fiscal year. We gotta march this through. We know of the challenges with the BC federal government, so we're trying to move it through. Number two, nature of the concerns was focusing largely on aesthetics in the staff report. So I think we found a resolution here to try and address some of those things, with the caveat that, in this environment, we've been trying to cut costs for months now, and we're trying to deliver the best possible package within that. And secondly, the key thing here is delays would cost us a lot in terms of development cost charges, additional work, and that translates right to rent costs at the end of the day. So this is what's going to be, it's going to take something that is attainable for residents and push it over the top. So I just wanted to acknowledge that letter. I think, I'm glad to hear the conversation today. RCHS has done so much to bring this to you, including we've increased staffing. We've brought property management in-house. This is another criteria for the long-term management that we're obligated to do for this project. Updated systems, professional management, pulled in over $1 million in new grants. and are, built a lot of strong partnerships in the community. And as we go forward with the amended recommendation, I know for sure that the design team is going to be able to work with the city staff to get something that's a little bit closer. And I would just really, for those reasons, ask council to support the resolution as presented.
Okay, any other comments, Councilor Luciano? Councilor Devlin?
Okay.
I'm gonna call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? No, that motion is carried unanimously.
So,
I have a second motion.
yeah, so, okay, just on the second motion, I think that's unnecessary, but if there's a comment from the planner, is that correct?
The letter of indemnity that may be accepted as form of security, so I think that's what you wanted.
Through your worship, yes, we should have that on there, just to clarify that they don't need to provide a landscape security.
Oh, okay,
gotcha. Yes.
Okay.
So basically, you want to put number 2 on, Councilor Devlin, you want to put number 2 on, including that a letter of indemnity sort of thing?
I will move that the owner provide security for the due and proper completion of landscaping and 125% of the amount identified in the cost estimate to the city of Revelstoke in the form of cash or unconditional irrevocable auto renewing letter of credit issued by Canadian Charter Bank or credit union prior to issuance of a building permit, and the letter of indemnity from BC Housing may be accepted as a acceptable form of security.
Seconder for the motion, please, Councilor Lucia. And he's not an auctioneer, folks. He,
So we do this one on every lot. I know it by heart by now.
Any comments on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you all. We have made it through. We are now going to go on to correspondence. Kindred's letter noted, Mr. Emerson. We have the letter here. We have basically, I think we've dealt with everything. Are you comfortable with where we're at?
Yes.
All right, we're not going to discuss the letter any further. I'm going to call for termination of the meeting. Councilor Devlin, Councilor Orlando, all in favor. Motion's carried. We're done. Thank you all. Thank you, Ms. Peters, Mr. Emerson, Mr. Dow, all the rest. Sheena's not here anymore, but thank you so much for today and for your dedication. We so much appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.